Hey everyone, welcome to episode 85 of the Ceres podcast. I'm your host Stelios, and in this episode we talk to Jason Jeffries, founder, and Paul Pavli, consultant of the app Fetch. Fetch is an online ordering platform, not really an app I guess, but I guess that is actually where all the similarities to all other online ordering softwares and platforms end really. The team at Fetch understand that in a busy bar, restaurant, beer garden, you may not know where somebody is. People move around. So this app or the platform, let's say, it really has a huge focus on location. It can find a customer within 10 centimetres. There is just so much more going on with this platform that I didn't want to list it all here because it'd be a 20-minute introduction. But, you know, when you listen to the podcast, I think you understand that it's not just a click and collect or an online order. There's so much more to it. I guess this is really important because the future isn't just apps and going online. Anyone can make an app or just a website, but it's making all those apps work with your current setups for a seamless customer experience, but also a seamless operational workflow. And I really appreciate the fact that both of these guys know exactly what they're talking about and really explain it really well. So, a little about Jason and Paul. Jason started a hospitality tech business back in 2008, and he essentially replaced the old-style leather-bound hotel compendium with an iPad that offered all the hotel services, including room service, spa booking, hearing and lighting controls. They built a global business and had over 5,000 hotels using their software by the time he sort of left that company. He then took a year off, sailed across the Atlantic to the Caribbean, spent a year there and sailed back. It sounds pretty much like, I don't know how we can do stuff like that. I don't get it at all. How people are so motivated. I just wish I was. He started Fetch at the beginning of this year to focus on mobile ordering and payment, but with a huge USP, which is personal location finding. Their technology allows an order to be placed from anywhere and will find you to an accuracy, as we said above, of 10 centimetres. With the onslaught of COVID, they have found that the industry accelerated the adoption of this type of technology, and they're working with loads of new hospitality venues to do more with a lot less. Paul is a hospitality titan. Paul's career spans 30 years in hospitality and leisure, with FTSE businesses such as Whitbread, JD Wetherspoons and Punch Taverns. He is an exec C-suite leader with expertise in growth, turnaround and business sale, exit in private equities and PLCs. Paul drives business performance and profitability to unlock value and deliver sustainable commercial success. He has a record of creating innovative strategies and a winning culture that engages staff to exceed expectations. As you can see, really lucky to have Jason and Paul on today. So I really hope you enjoy this. A few updates worth noting. Ceres Deep Fat Fry Cleaner, as I mentioned in the last update, is back in stock, all ready to go. So order it, fill your heart, just go for it. As mentioned also, a few customers were saying to me, hey, Stel, we've been using it as a general cleaner to clean the front of the frying range, the hobs, the cookers and so on. So I thought we'd test it out. And we do think it works. We tried it on a Florigo frying range. It's about 5 years old. We sort of just made a mild solution with warm water, a microfiber cloth, and all the stuff. I was going to say crap. I did say crap. All of it just came off. So we're going to write up a little guide. But in short, you just make warm water solution, Ceres Deep Fry Cleaner, and clean it away. Just dead easy. Cuts through grease and dirt like it's not there. On the 1st of March, would probably be tomorrow, we'll be sending out our monthly email. In that monthly email, you'll find a discount code for 20% off Ceres potato preparation. So you might as well bag yourself a bargain. Anyway, enough from me. I just wanted to cover some bases before this episode. I hope you enjoy episode 85 with Jason and Paul. Paul Pavli, Jason Jeffries, welcome to the Sarah's podcast.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, guys, I just wanted to say, thank you for your time today. I know how busy you both are. It's a crazy world, and you're both sort of juggling lots of hats, and we've been trying to sort of do this. I think, did we start talking before Christmas maybe? And it's just been sort of rolling over and buzzing away. But yeah, finally we've managed to get you on, which is amazing.
No, that's great. No, I think we did. And, in a startup world, a lot's happened since Christmas. So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit, Jason, about your history and now what it is that you're doing now with Fetch.
Yeah, no, sure. So I started a business in hospitality tech back in 2008. And we actually launched sort of putting tablets in the hotel room back then. It was actually pre-iPad that effectively kind of did everything. So, it did everything from controlling your heating, your lighting. You could order room service, you could book spa treatments, and so on and so on. It was kind of like literally your intelligent kind of room assistant. But the real kind of feature that really took off from that was the kind of food and beverage ordering. So when I exited that business in 2017, we got it to thousands of hotels globally, with Marriott being our big sort of customer. I felt it was sort of time to kind of go and do something else. So yeah, it took a couple of years off, and then came back just focusing on mobile payment and ordering, but with one big USP, and that is location. When I was in the sort of the hotel sector, all the hotels used to say to me, Jason, wouldn't it be great if our guests could order from anywhere, from the pool, from the beach, from the lobby lounge, and we could just find them. So it was something that I kind of really thought about for a couple of years, and then I teamed up with a guy I'd known for about 15 years, and he's one of the kind of leading developers on location services in the world. He's got over 30 patents. A guy called Ben Talley, who's one of our founders actually and CIO, and Julian, who's the other founder of Fetch. We absolutely love the tech that Ben sort of brought to the party. So yeah, we teamed up and we just built the whole platform from this location technology. So the big difference with us is people can order anywhere. So think, festivals, think cinemas, think, beaches, airports, and we can pinpoint their location to an accuracy of about 10 centimeters.
Wow, it's pretty close, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, especially if you're in a crowded bar, a nightclub, and you're in your circle of friends, and you might be moving around, and you don't want to go and queue at a 10-deep bar. I mean, obviously this is post-COVID, right? I mean, remember those times? I think it feels like a distant memory, but I mean that's when we started creating it. Obviously, we started creating it before COVID, and that was what we had in mind, that people could literally, they don't have to stop their conversations with their friends. They can just order, and they'll be found with a tray of drinks.
Yeah, that does sound nice, doesn't it? Tray, drinks, out, no one bothering you. That sounds like a dream right now, doesn't it?
Well, I'd give to queue at a bar now.
It's true, like to do those old things that are really annoying, that, to wait in a long queue and think, But no, it does sound pretty amazing. I've got so many questions for you on the tech side. But before we do that, Paul, let us know a little bit about your history and how you sort of got started and where you are now.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. More than 30 years in hospitality across sort of pub, restaurant and hotel sectors. The last 20 of those I've been working in the pub sector with businesses like Whitbread, Wetherspoons, and for the last 14 years, Punch Taverns, where I was MD. Business went through a massive sale back in 2017, and it went from being listed on the FTSE to being PE backed. So I left about 2 years ago after that business sale, and for the last 2 years have acted as a consultant and advisor in this space, pubs, restaurants, hotels, leisure, for a number of businesses, both listed, but also lots of SMEs who just really want some help, not sure what they really want right now, and I guess after those first 2 or 3 chats, work out what they think they need over the next 2 or 3 years. So I'm doing that for the last couple of years. A couple of advisory roles, of which Fetch is one of my advisory roles, but I also act as a NED for 2 businesses. The British Institute of Innkeeping is an awarding body, and also a pre-book sales agency called Bums on Seats, who help businesses, mainly in the restaurant and bar space and pub space, achieve pre-book sales. So that could be bookings, it could be meal kits, it could be events, etc. Working in that space, helping those companies try and find their way, I guess, through. My 2 years in business on my own have been, the first year was Brexit negotiations and the second year has been pandemic, so pretty tough times. And I met Jason and some of his team through a mutual contact, probably in the spring of last year, and heard what they were doing. And you'll hear more later on, and I like the features of some of the Fetch solution. And that's why I got involved on their advisory board. And more recently been helping Darren, who's the sales director, understand more about the pub and restaurant space and what operators are looking for from a solution. The big one for solutions, I'm a big one for knowing why somebody would use it. And for me, that's the business, but also the consumer. How do you make a consumer, use your solution because they like doing it rather than they have to get a drink?
I suppose that's the really interesting point at the moment, is that I've written it down for later on in my notes, and it's app fatigue. Everyone's having to download an app, whether it's for their local chip shop, whether it's for the local Indian, whether it's for the Chinese, whether it's Just Eat, which has all of them on there. And at what point do customers start to think, I've got 10, 12, 14 apps on my phone that are all because I want to do something? And whereas, chatting to one of my friends, he's like, I just miss going to a restaurant. I just miss going to a takeaway and just walking in and saying, I'm here to pick up X. And it is a bit of an inconvenience. And so how do you sort of get people to sort of, not think of it as app fatigue and to always keep that app on their phone?
Yeah. I was just going to, I mean, you've got to make it so it can be used in lots of different sort of contexts. So, for example, if you can't get flagging down a server, a waiter, waitress, you can use the app. But then, do you know what? If the waiter, waitress is there and you can see them, order from them as well. We get asked a lot, and customers get a little bit confused. They say, "Oh, but I don't want to get rid of my kind of staff." And we say, "Well, no, we're not advocating that at all. We're advocating giving people choice, so you get more revenue because it speeds things up." So how we've built the Fetch app is that you can order with the staff, or you can order through the app, and it all collects, and you can just walk out actually, and it'll automatically kind of clear your tab. You can actually even just do all your ordering through the staff and still, clear your tab through the app. So it's very flexible.
You mentioned about app fatigue, and one of the things on our phones, we've probably got 50 or 60 apps on our phone. We probably use 10 all the time in our day-to-day life. And I guess what frustrated me in the past was going to a pub or a restaurant and being told you need to go online and download the app. Now, Fetch has done something very clever with something called App Clips. Apple launched App Clips in September last year, and with App Clips, you can just touch an NFC tag at the bar area, and it brings the app from the App Store or Google Store onto your phone. A native version of the app, so you don't have to have the app on your phone and then go search for it. You can just touch the NFC tag, which is some new technology, and it brings the app onto your phone. So you get away from having to have 10 or 12 apps on your phone for your favorite 10 or 12 restaurants and pubs. Every time you go there, you can just tap that NFC tag and it brings it to your phone. And if it becomes your go-to place, then sure, you can save the app onto your phone and have it there anyway, but you don't need to go and find and hunt down the app in the App Store. Which one is it? It's bad reception, I can't download it. So there's some really cool tech about that helps consumers avoid the app fatigue.
And you need to have some fun with it as well. So, for example, a project Paul's working on for us at the moment is working with a lot of the drinks companies. So, for example, they can make some NFC-enabled beer mats. So, like, for example, say Heineken or Guinness, or and it can say 2 for 1. You tap the beer mat, and it takes you straight to that beer to order. So things like that. So try and make it really sort of fun for people and useful for people, so they don't have that app fatigue.
I always say there's got to be a reward, hasn't there? And I think that makes sense. Like for the consumer, if it's something fun, I remember it must have been about, we're trying to think, 2010 maybe. The iPhone sort of was started to take some traction, maybe 12, I think, and then not when it was launched, but when it started to gather some real traction. And I remember there was a Domino's pizza app, and then I remember they were like, "Oh, like order your pizza and blow into the microphone." And you blow into the microphone and it says, "Oh, your pizza's cooling down. You can eat it now." And then you'd win a prize. And I thought, and I know they were probably going to give me a coupon anyway. Let's face it, like it's Domino's. But it's the fact that they made you interact with it. Like, and I felt that, you know, I think that's the point. I think people want to feel part of something, not just, you know, a bystander. And I think apps really, and this goes back to the app versus staff argument. You know, it's marrying the two together so that you don't feel like you're being served by a robot. And you know, and I think a friend of mine owns quite a few McDonald's franchises, and she was having a conversation with someone, and they said, "Oh, you've put all these screens up, you've got apps everywhere, you're just trying to get rid of all your staff." And she says, "Well, actually, in order to do this, we need 3 times more staff." And they were like, "Well, how?" And they said, "Because it's all in the kitchen now." And the staff base had just gone up from serving staff to sort of rear staff. So staff are always going to exist, aren't they? It's not like, you know, we are not going to get served by some, I don't know, this crazy, it's just not going to happen, is it? No,
not in our lifetime, no. But it's interesting because, you know, Jason sort of talked there about, you know, redeploying staff, and you know, I think consumers want to engage with these solutions more and more, but they want to do it where on their terms. And I had 2 experiences recently where I went to a pub. I won't mention the company's name, but and I sat down and I was encouraged to use their app to order my food. But they came and took my drinks order verbally, and I knew what was going to happen. So I ordered my food on the app, paid for my food on the app, and then had to go and queue at the bar when I finished to go and pay for my drink. And consumers don't want that. They want to make it easy for themselves and do things once. And the Fetch solution lets you do that. If you interact with the solution and it's integrated with their EPOS systems, you're doing it once. You're ordering and you're paying on your phone. And in that busy beer garden, rather than trying to flag somebody down like we all do, like landing an airplane, don't do that. And just order on the app. But when they walk past and say, "Can I get you the same again, guys?" then you can say yes. And in some places where you say to them, "Can I get some more drinks?" No, you need to go on the app. We went to a pub about, you know, probably the summer of last year, so just after the first lockdown ended, and we had to use the app to order some drinks. It was just beers, and it was hard work to get on the app, register. It was a real hard thing. And then we ordered the 4 drinks, and we heard this ticket machine going off by the bar, and the person that wouldn't serve us got the ticket printer off the till and rang the 4 beers into the till, and then poured the 4 beers. So the app was just delivering a piece of paper to the bar person. She wouldn't even take our drinks order. We tried to get another round of drinks, and they said to us, "No, you've got to use the app again." So we just left. So in that scenario, you're making my life as a consumer really hard. I'm not going to engage. I'm going to go somewhere else in the future.
No, it's funny because so many tech companies don't think about the kind of customer journey. I mean, one of the first things that kind of Paul identified when we asked him to look at the market and look at competitors and things was that they were all focused on the single person just ordering and paying. Can you imagine how frustrating that is? Every time you want, you've ordered a drink, someone else walks in, "Oh, I've got to do it again. Oh, I want some food." I've got to go through the whole process from start to finish. And so Paul said to me, "You know, Jason, you need to have open a tab functionality." And that is easier said than done. It was actually a huge sort of piece of work for the product team, but we've got there now and we've released that. And the feedback's been fantastic, hasn't it, Paul?
Absolutely amazing. I mean, it was easy for me to say it. You know, it was easy for the clever guys to make it happen. I'm guessing. I don't know. I just wanted it to happen. But the tab facility is amazing. You can go into a venue now, order your drinks on your phone, open a tab as a consumer, decide your limit, say £100 as your tab. No risk to the business at all because you're pre-authorizing your card. Your friends come in, you can add to your tab. You can order food and drinks. You can run that tab all day, all night long. And when it comes to paying, your friends can eat. You know, even if you have a really good friend who wants to share the tab with you, you can share the tab with your friend and split the bill 50-50 or 60-40. and you can also tip your staff as well. So it ticks for me 3 boxes. It tips the box for the consumer because it's making their life easier. The business does well because if you have a tab, you can order more drinks, because if it's easy to order more drinks, you'll have more drinks. That second and third drink are much quicker, and the staff are happy because they're getting tipped for delivering drinks and food rather than taking the order and then delivering the drinks and food. So for me, the tab facility is the one thing everyone's loved that we've seen, and no one else has got it right now in the UK. Others will have it soon, but we were first to market. But it's the one thing that it does really tick all 3 boxes: consumer, business, and staff.
I suppose in some ways there's got to be a lot of emphasis on making the choosing process for the customer as easy as possible, because they've sort of got no one else to blame if they get it wrong, and you don't want a customer to feel like they got it wrong either. So yeah. I guess that there's a lot of emphasis on that, isn't there, to some degree?
Well, there is, but I guess also as a business, you can decide how to prioritise your food and drinks on that list, and you can then put the products you want to sell. When you look at a menu, you have the menu with all the boxes around the big items of food that they want to sell. On the app, just make sure that your best-selling gin or the biggest GP gin is at the top of the list. Or you could do what Jason mentioned earlier and work with a supplier and say, right, we'll promote your gin, do a 2 for 1. And we'll do an NFC tag for that. And when somebody taps that Table Talker, we put 2 gins in the basket. One's discounted by a value, and the consumers gains because they get a free drink. The business gets paid by the brand owner for their promotion. So it really does work both ways. And you're right. There are less mistakes because the consumer knows what they're ordered. Yeah. And also with the app, for those that are in a rush, it tells them where their order is in the process. So orders been processed, orders about to be delivered to you. And I think you mentioned earlier, Stella, about somebody going to the venue. I think for me, because people saying, some consumers won't use it and some will. For me, some won't use it, full stop. My parents won't use it. But actually, I'll use it some days, but not other days. If I'm on my own and I want to go out and have an hour on my own somewhere, have a drink and a sandwich and sit in the corner somewhere, and not interact with a human being because I'm on the computer, I want to use the app. Other days I want to speak to somebody and say, hey, can I order with you today? But actually you can do it. Why not with both? Why can't I order on my app and with somebody and not be told by that bar person, you've got to go on the app? And the Fresh Solution makes it easy to do that with POS integration, of course. But I can order with a human being or on my app, and I'm in control, frankly.
And the thing that I wanted to solve, the problem I wanted to solve, which I couldn't stand in the industry, was trying to pay your bill. When you're just like trying to wait, it's so frustrating. You want to go and you're trying to flag down the waiter and you just can't get them, and it's you're looking at your watch and you just want to get out of there. So we thought about that, and the beauty of Fetch is with our location services, you can just walk out the venue. And we know when you're sort of within, when you've properly left, because we also do it on a time thing. So we look at, they're outside. They're not just outside for a cigarette. They've actually gone more than 10 meters, and that's been a certain time. And your tab, you get a notification just saying, we're just clearing your tab.
So Jason, are you suggesting that the universal hand sign of doing the signature doesn't work? Is that what you're saying?
or the flagging down of the Boeing 747 to get a waiter to come to the back of the garden for you.
Yeah, I just remember going to a restaurant, especially in Cyprus more than anything. We'd be with my dad when I was younger, and he's catching the waiter's eye, and he'd just do this this little thing, as if to say, it's a check, and he still does it, although he pays cash for everything. And it's just and my dad, I'm telling you now, he's only 60. He's got an iPhone, he's got everything, but he wouldn't use any of this, because he just likes that old fashioned, that old fashioned way. But I think if I was to go with him somewhere, we went to the airport once, and we're up to Costa Coffee, I paid on my phone. He was just like, "What is this voodoo?" And I was just like, "I just paid with my phone." He's like, "What do you mean you paid with your phone?" I was like, "You just go up to the machine, Dad, and you press it." And he's like, he goes, "I just don't get it." He goes, "Why don't you just let me take my money out?" And I was like, "You still got your hand in your pocket. By the time you even get close to pulling that tenner out, we're done." And I think what's amazing is that when it caught his eye that we'd probably spent, I don't know, £9 on coffee. I think he was genuinely shocked, and he's not a stingy person at all. But I think the difference is that when you pay with online services, customers think very differently about their purchase, I think. And I think if you've only got a 10 or 20 quid or 30 quid in your pocket, I always feel like that's your ceiling, that's your limit. You're not going to spend any more than that. Whereas, I guess if you've got this app in front of you and you've got your credit card, Apple Pay or whatever all connected, it just feels like I'll worry about it another day, or I don't need to worry about it. And I wonder if you guys can see those figures, or if it's shared with you after someone signing up. I wonder if they do see an increase.
That's great. Yeah, you definitely do see larger basket value. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes by as much as sort of 30-40%.
Wow, that's quite considerable, though, isn't it? That's
I'd like to go back to your dad, though, Stelios. How would he like it if he wasn't using an app, but he was at a table and just magically, as his glass became empty, the waiter always appeared ready to fill up his glass again?
I guess he'd like that. Obviously, I think he'd like that element of it. But I think he's of the generation where he thinks that should happen anyway. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, when he died, yeah.
But the business, I mean, is struggling, right? The industry is struggling, right? There's a lot of staff we're finding are not able to come back because they've had to leave to get other jobs because the furlough rate just wasn't enough. So a lot, and then a lot of venues are struggling cash wise, so they're reopening with much fewer staff. So service levels really need technology to help maintain, especially a high level of service in luxury hotels and so on. And we have a very exciting product that I'm really happy to talk about, which we call Table Tracker. And Table Tracker actually is scanning the tables using computer vision and LiDAR, and it actually in real-time data gives data back on what's going on with the table. So, for example, it's even monitoring the drink levels, like in your father's glass. So it can tell that staff member, hey, Stelios' dad needs a refill.
That's pretty impressive, I must admit. Like, using technology that from elsewhere to sort of bring that into hospitality, I think is pretty clever. Like, I love stuff like that. If that's me, I'd be like, wow. Like, or at least not so much wow, maybe wow the first time, but I think after that it'd just be like, okay, it's done. At least it's done. Like, but no, I think this is probably where we're going. Like, and I think it's great. And I think, for me, people like my dad maybe will just get with it, especially if there's a little sign next to that machine that said that the thingy machine. I forgot what you called it now. Not Bluetooth, the other one. Go on, guys, help me. What was it? NFC.
NFC tag. Yeah.
So if there's a little thing next, a little poster or something next to the NFC tag that says P U. Come on, put your phone there. You might get with it. Who knows? And I think, because I think one of the big issues, at the moment, I think, is that, well, I don't know if it's an issue. It could be a good thing. Is that we're moving sort of in a fast way towards a cashless society, and I think some people love it, some people hate it. But I think it's always been there. Like, I remember pre-COVID reading an article about Nando's, and it said that they were taking over 75% of their income was card, and that was increasing by like 4 or 5% every year. So you think at that level, they ain't got much left before they're not even taking cash. Let's be honest. Like, and especially when they reopen post-COVID, I wonder if it's just going to be like, are we going to see restaurants saying card only? And if it is that when we just turn to apps and not credit card terminals?
I think for me, we're heading there. We're not there yet, and there are, chatting to some operators over the last couple of months about the Fetch solution. Some of those chats, the operators are sort of saying, they were, 20% of their revenue was card 2 or 3 years ago, and it's now 70% card. Because it's happened during COVID. There are some venues who said we're card only, no cash. I think businesses won't turn cash away. Once they reopen, if somebody's going in there to spend money, they're going to want to take it. But it's gone to £1 in £5 is cash now rather than card, which is great for the businesses as well, because it does two things. It means their banking charges are cheaper because it's cheaper to to transact over a card rather than to bank money in the bank. But also it means their insurance premiums go down because they're insuring their safes and for less money less cash on site. Are we going to be totally cashless? I don't think we are in the next 10 years. I mean, my mum, a bit like your dad, I guess. My mum, she's got 2 accounts with Santander. One she uses to pay her direct debits, which I set up for about 2 years ago. But she goes to the bank, takes money out of one, and pays it into the other, rather than saying to them, "Can you put 100 from there into there?" So I think those people are always going to be around, right?
Yeah.
But anybody sort of sub 50, sub 60 will probably be using card, more than ever before, because we've been educated over the last 12 months or so, or not brainwashed, I guess, but to use card, not cash. It's easy for businesses. It will be there though.
No, absolutely. And do you guys, I find as well a lot now, when you get caught out without your wallet, I've had it a few times when I've kind of, been picking the kids up from school and they're like, "Oh, Dad, can we have a McDonald's?" And I'm like, "Oh no, guys, I've left my wallet at home." And I thought, "Oh no, I know, I've got Apple Pay." And I'm just getting more and more into it. I mean, obviously, I'm a tech guy, but just on those, those times when I really have just forgotten my wallet, you can still actually, all those machines, you can use your phone to pay. So yeah, I think it's definitely the future.
I think I definitely don't have like an anxiety of leaving my wallet anymore. Like if I'd left the house before, unless I'm doing a long distance, let's say going to London or Scotland, I definitely want my wallet. But if I'm just popping out like local stuff, I don't even think about my wallet no more. I've got 4 cards loaded up on my iPhone. I can pay with all of them. Every supermarket does it. And I remember at the beginning when they were saying supermarkets were saying we don't support Apple Pay. Yeah, I still did it and it still worked. And they were like, "Oh, did you just do it with your debit card?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that was it. And it was just, I think they didn't realize that the technology worked, and it just did. And I think,
and there's no limit as well. There's
no limit. And I get the odd person say to me, sometimes you'll be in the queue and they're like, "Oh yeah, but what if that gets stolen? You've had it." And I'm like, well, hey, good luck. Just good luck with that. It's facial recognition, and it's quite switched on, to be fair, because even after a shower, it will say put your passcode in because it doesn't recognise your face. So so it is quite switched on. It's quite intricate. So not being funny, the guy standing next to me in the queue at Co-op supermarket isn't really going to nick my phone when he looks nothing like me and rob it, is he? So I think.
Sorry, Stan, for me, the question is how much of that cashless money goes through an app rather than a card? And that, I mean a phone rather than a card, because in that scenario, 80% of their sales are cashless, i.e. a card. But actually in the future, is it going to be 50-50 card v phone, or is it going to be 70-30 phone v card? And I think that will grow much more. Like you said, Jason left the house, without the wallet, and suddenly you panic. But then you think, "Oh, I'm okay. I've got my card with me. It's just in my phone, not in my pocket."
Yeah, I probably see one thing growing is more like, I noticed even at the petrol station the other day, Shell, they have an app now, and they say you can just fill up. It's got your number plate in anyway. I guess it works with ANPR and their machines, and I guess you pay on your phone and leave. So it's in-app payment. And I wonder and I just wonder if that's maybe that's going to be more prominent in the future as opposed to tapping your phone all the time. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but I think I read something. It said that a few supermarkets are testing 3D barcodes, so you can literally just fill up your trolley, walk out, and it just scans them all without even doing anything. Because I think there's I can't remember what the technology was, but essentially I would imagine it's probably some sort of infrared, and it just scans them all. So you can walk out, you've got your account set up because that you needed that to get a trolley anyway. And you just walk around, do your shopping, get in the car, and you just get a message saying your shopping bill's, whatever, you've paid your shopping bill, for argument's sake.
Even sorry, Jason.
I was going to say, I mean, that's exactly what we're doing, right? That you get your drinks, get your food, and walk out, right? I mean, you don't need to, it's just really quick and efficient.
Even Pret are doing it now. You can go up. They're starting the trial now. So you go up to the Pret, you collect your sandwiches from the fridges on your drinks in the fridges, and you're scanning the barcodes, and you can leave straight away. without going to the counter and queuing up when you don't want a coffee.
Is there any way that that person that wants to scam the system, does that exist? Is there still a way for that to happen?
Well, they could just walk out without paying for it. But Co-op launched some facial recognition systems about a month ago, and the press coverage is all about how they're using it to identify theft. But actually, why can't they use it to help you make that experience better? Go in there, get your products. It knows who you are. Your face is linked to your phone, it's linked to your credit card or debit card. Why can't I go in, collect my food and drinks and leave, and they know what I've got? It's got to be coming that way around. And again, the petrol station, the petrol pumps, why not a camera on the pump that sees me, knows who I am, are you Paul? Apple Pay, yes. And I'll save myself going into the shop. Problem is, though, they don't want it, do they? They want us in the shop because we go in there and buy a sausage roll, bag of crisps, a Mars bar, and a can of Coke, right? So you can't make it too easy because then you're losing revenue.
Yeah, so they almost want a little bit of friction still, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. Yeah, they want us to go in, stand there, be bored out of our head and still not buy anything.
And what they want you to do is just go in there and buy your sausage roll and your bag of crisps and your Coke and Mars bar and leave without going to the counter. And when you leave, it knows you've got 4 products, you're Paul Pavli, and we've got your credit card details, right, you can go. So that might happen,
Yeah, makes sense. So, Paul, go on, sorry, Jason.
I was just saying, interesting what you said about the kind of the trust culture, because Apple actually pioneered that in their, the Apple stores. They got rid of the traditional kind of cash registers. And as you effectively get something, you can scan it yourself and walk out. Yeah. And they worked out that the loss, the loss was exactly the same as it was before that, almost to the exact percentage in terms of shoplifting. So it just shows you that most people are kind of trustworthy enough, like the Pret example, to scan and walk out.
I guess, like you say, like Paul said earlier, if someone's going to steal it, they're going to steal it, regardless of whether they're using an app or not. Yeah. So, I guess if anything, it's easy to just walk in, grab a sandwich, and run. Like, so, yeah. One thing I wanted to sort of ask you, Paul, is that I know you're quite well connected in the sort of hospitality and the pub industry. What's your feelings, or what are you hearing about sort of what's going on at the moment? Well, actually, there's 2 things. Obviously, we mentioned it, Brexit, and there's COVID. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I guess most restaurants and pubs have been closed for at least 7 of the last 10 or 12 months. But even when they were open, really, some of them weren't really open because they were open under really strange tiers. If you're a wet led pub, you couldn't open because you sell food. Well, you're wet led. So most pubs have been shut for most of the last 12 months. So that has major issues with cash flow, as you can imagine. No revenue coming in, and you've got some costs going out. These companies are going to have years of debt to repay. They've all taken, those that have taken, cheap government CBILS loans or bounce back loans. That's great. The interest is really cheap, but it's a debt, and it's a debt that you're going to have to pay back over the next 5 to 10 years. I guess on the back of Brexit, a few that I've spoken to over the last few weeks and last few months are saying that if tomorrow, reopening happened tomorrow at last year, at 2019 revenue levels, they couldn't cope because most of them are going to be short staff, and that's a combination of staff that left during 2019 and that Brexit negotiation for that exit date and didn't come back to the UK, and then of course the last year or so pandemic. Combination of people leaving the country, going back home, but also leaving the industry and thinking, well, I need to go and work in retail somewhere or in a supermarket area that I know I've got a bit more stability. So there is going to be a shortage of staff when they reopen. I guess I can't see the industry returning to pre-COVID revenue levels for 2 or 3 years at the earliest. I do some work with a friend who writes about the future of food service, and his forecasts are saying it's going to be 2023, maybe 24, early 24 before the sector returns to the total revenue levels of 2019. £198 billion revenue in the sector in 2019. It was 48 billion last year, dropped by half last year. And this year will be about the same because we will have been closed for 3 months, the first 3 months of the year. So it will take a few years to recover. Now, within that, people will win. and there'll be winners and losers, as always is, I guess. And those that are in London or big city centres are going to struggle until people return to offices to work again. And those in those market towns, those suburban rural areas where people are finding themselves now working from home, are doing better than the rest. I won't say doing well, because everyone's struggling right now, but doing better than the rest. So, staff issues will happen, cash strapped. And the government support that they've been offering over the last year or so, at the start was sort of okay, but for the last 6 or so months, has helped staff, i.e. furlough costs, but not businesses, because furlough now costs businesses money since October last year, around about 18% of their payroll bill. They pay NI contributions and also pension contributions. So businesses are now paying to have staff not work, whereas at the start that was a free cost to their businesses. The VAT reductions helped a lot, down to 5% for food and soft drinks. But actually, they've also been closed for 4 of those 9 months, November and then the first 3 months of this financial year, this calendar year rather. So that isn't really helping at the moment. And government grants that have been passed down to local governments rather than national government are taking weeks and weeks and months to come out from local government. So really, really sort of dragging their feet, paying that money out to local businesses. And the uncertainty is the worst part. Yesterday Boris Johnson announced the plans to come out of the current lockdown, and for some pubs they won't reopen again until May or June. And wouldn't even announce yesterday what the plans are to support business until next week for the budget. Well, what you announce it yesterday. Tell people yesterday whether they're going to have a business rate reduction, whether they're going to have VAT reductions for the next year or so. Is furlough here for another 6 or 9 months? So just being really slow on reacting. And in their head, I think they're thinking, well, we'll tell you next week. And they're going to give businesses a week's notice before they are allowed to reopen. Well, it takes 3 weeks to get any food into a venue. By the time you order it into the networks, into the venue. So they don't really get how businesses need more time to plan these things, and also to if you're a CEO now or a CFO planning for 2021, what do you do? Do you plan? What do you plan from May? Are you furloughing? Are you VAT reduction? Have you got business rate support? How do you plan? You're going to have 2 or 3 plans if you're managing a business trying to get through the next 2 or 3 years, which most of them have now got.
Yeah. What would you like to see? What would you like to see them announce? When Rishi talks next week.
Yeah, I think most of the clever people in the industry, most of the sensible people in the industry are saying, if you're going to close this, we get that, but actually help us get through this. And all you hear is, we've extended furlough. Yes, you have, but that doesn't help. That helps a member of staff. You get to a place that my staff will have a job, but no company to work for in theory because I've gone bust. So what I want to see the VAT reduction continue, because that's helped lots of businesses during the summertime. Doesn't help wet-led pub because there's still VAT on beer. A business rates contribution for the next 12 months or so, until businesses manage to recover and survive for the next 12 months. So some sort of business rates help, and a bit of stability, long-term thinking. Tell businesses what you're going to give them for the next 12 months, not just the next 2 or 3. Help them plan for the future. A lot of these CBILS loans are kicking in at the end of this year. A lot of the VAT repayments that people hadn't paid back last year are starting again in April, but they've got to pay over 12 months. Make it 24 months. At least if you do that, you've got a chance of getting your money back from somebody rather than them going bust in the next 10, trying to pay you back in 10 months rather than in 24 months. So some longer term thinking for businesses. This industry contributes £40 billion a year in taxes to the government in a normal year. 2019, £39 billion in taxes from £130 billion of revenue. So it's a massive taxpayer. 33% of our income goes towards tax. So when the government are giving the industry some grants, in my head, it's a good decision. It's a good return on investment. You've taken £40 billion for the last 10 years. You'll take it again in the future once it recovers. Help us get there quicker, because if you do that, you'll get your 40 million quid every year for the next 10 years. And what people don't get, when they sort of say, "Oh, the government should close pubs and restaurants because they're bad for the pandemic." Well, less than 2% of diseases were found to come from hospitality, and don't forget that £40 billion a year in taxes pays for a lot of NHS costs and a lot of infrastructure costs in the UK. So this industry for years has helped the country, I guess, thrive.
Do you see the Eat Out to Help Out thing coming back? That scheme?
I think it was a good thing. I think it was too good. I think twofold. If I can be a bit political, I think Rishi got a lot of friends out there, and I think it may have scared some of his potential colleagues if he ever goes for the PM role in the future. So I think he wouldn't be supported by some of the MPs out there. And I think some people think they relate that time back to the spike in cases around about September, October, November time. And for me, it's more about schools going back in September, and that's what caused the spike. Because the spike would have come earlier in my head if it would have been Eat Out to Help Out. It would happen in August, not in September, October time. I think I can see something where they encourage people to go out and spend. Because if you haven't lost your job in the last 12 months, you're actually in a reasonably good place. You could have been on furlough or working at home, so that suddenly you're getting most of your income. You've got no travel expenses, and you've gone nowhere. So if you've got a job right now, you're actually in reasonably good health financially. So some way of getting people out and about to spend cash again when the economy when the sector reopens again, to try and trigger the economy to grow again. Frankly.
Yeah. Do you? I think I read that. I think it's Germany. They covered 80% of the costs of hospitality.
Of the profit of businesses.
I read it as it was just the costs. So they basically covered 80% of their costs, whether that includes staff, utilities, capital costs. I guess. What's that? Anyone hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear the feedback. It's quiet here.
Yeah, it's quiet here. It doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah, so we'll carry on. I just heard something really loud waving. So yeah, I think I read it as 80% of the costs of running the business. And they said, and I think the way a lot of people saw it, that they shouldn't be covering the profit aspects. And, there's nothing to worry about at the moment because there isn't any profit. So, yeah. But I think, I don't know, I'm sort of torn because I know they've not got it right with hospitality at the moment. But I also don't think that, I don't think they would have got it right anyway for anybody. I think there was always going to be somewhere where they just didn't get it right in some respects.
Yeah, and they made some mistakes with the business rates for holidays. They gave everybody who paid business rates. Now some companies have paid it back now because they actually thrived during the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy. They should have categorized it.
I think I read early on, again, a friend of mine sent me an article early on, and it says, initially, whenever anything like this happens, something big, governments don't take their time to say, all right, let's just give this category money. They'll literally just say, here's a broad load of money, give it broadly, and then they start to, narrow it down. And I think this is where the squeeze has now come, because now if you want money, you've got to apply and do a means test and prove that you need it. Giving Sainsbury's, all that money for rates doesn't really make sense to me. But yeah, the good thing is that at least they gave it back.
Yeah, they did. And actually, when you apply for a Sybil's loan, Sybil's loan more than a bounce back, actually, you had to provide a business plan that showed you were a viable business. Well, I would challenge that. In May last year, no one in the UK ran a viable business, because when are you going to reopen? So you were made to write a business plan of your next 5-year journey to get your Sybil's loan. But actually, you were not a viable business, and actually they changed the rules on sustainability, on business becoming viable as directors' responsibilities, didn't they? Just because everybody back then had a business with no income and costs going out.
Yeah.
Other countries have done better. I think France as well as Germany gave a percentage of your normal turnover, and it allowed you then to pay your staff from that number. Because if your turnover was the same level, then you could afford to pay your bills, frankly. And there are big companies out there that have spoken in the last 6 or so months that have said, we're in trouble here, and it's hard because they can't really be too honest, because if they say the truth, they spook the troops. The staff then think, well, I'm going to find another role somewhere else. I'm going to leave this business. So, I do feel sorry for the CEOs and leaders in big companies out there who can't really say. They can't really say how bad it is, because they're going to spook the troops. And they're going to find those staff about when they reopen again in a few months' time.
The CEO of Pure Gym said yesterday that they're losing £500,000 a day.
Yeah, that is rough.
I had to keep staring at the article, and then obviously it made sense when he said there was nearly 200 sites, which, wow, that's amazing. But I just I couldn't think, I couldn't comprehend that loss, that huge loss, and I do wonder, what does happen? Fast forward 3-4 years, I wonder what. Providing we come out of this and bounce back. I don't like the wording, bounce back again and all that, but I do think it'd be so good just to see ahead. But if we knew that, would be huge investors. But I think that would be.
The Pure Gym example, that's about £40 million in a year, right, of cash burn, right? So they've been closed for a year, best part of a year now. That's £40 million that they've got, that they owe somebody, that would have been, to be shared across, staff in terms of salaries and training, investors paid back, dividends. So that money's gone. £40 million. It'd be good to see how much they make in a year, frankly, and it could be 5 or 10 years profit.
Yeah. No, it's scary money. It's scary money to lose. It's hard to wrap your head around. And one thing I wanted to touch on before we moved on is what's your thoughts on rent and landlords? Because I think that's something that's still bubbling away. There's no answer, and it's going to need some form of government intervention, surely, because it is literally just bubbling away at the moment, because everything else is at the forefront. But this is going to be the biggest issue in time to come, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the government have been extending the debt moratorium, so you can't be taken to court in theory and evicted while that goes on. But it doesn't mean you haven't got a massive debt coming up, and it's a massive elephant in the room. And the government haven't intervened so far, and they need to. And the landlords also are in trouble, frankly. So who's helping those guys out? They can't afford to say no rent for the last year or so. That they need help as well. But it's a massive problem coming up. And what will happen there is that some of the good operators will lose some of their best sites because the rents are really high and they haven't paid rent for a year or so. That will happen. It will force companies to fall over when landlord comes calling for that rent. And it's something that could have been foreseen by the government. It should have been foreseen by them 6-9 months ago. But it's definitely a big issue out there. And I'm already sort of seeing on a number of Twitter sites from people that I sort of know really well and follow that some landlords are already sort of turning the screws and saying we want our money, even though you haven't traded for a year. And I don't. I get it. I don't agree with it. I just understand it. They've also got balance sheets and budgets that they're not missing, and who's going to help those guys? Now, some of them are, a wealthy blue chip, billion-dollar companies, but actually they're also in there will be somebody who's got a shop somewhere, and it's their pension, frankly, and they've got income from 5 or 6 shops, and that's their pension. So how do they survive? It's not just, we hear about the big guys, you don't hear about the small landlords. They also need help as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the only thing I can see is maybe the burden gets split 3 ways: government, landlord, and the restaurant owner, let's say, or the pub owner. I think that's the only logical solution. And whether the government's waiting for the end of the rent moratorium to sort of announce something, you'd hope. But again, someone's got to put the pressure on the government, because if you're not screaming at them, they're not listening. So, I think that's the key thing.
Far too sensible. That's a three-way split. Come on.
Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't be sensible. Everyone keeps telling me that. But maybe we should come out with some heavily convoluted plan, just for the government to do, really. So, Jason, one of the things that really impresses me, really, is the geotechnology. I remember a few years ago, it was pretty hit and miss. What can people do to make that better now? Like, a beacon's still important. Would you say that sites put beacons in place, or is it stronger Wi-Fi? What do they need to do to sort of bolster their GPS-ness, let's say?
Yeah, beacons are good, but they only really work if you're actually running an app. So if you're not actually running the app, they don't sort of talk to the phone. So no, what we do, our technology actually uses the sensors on a phone. So over the last kind of 10 years or so, they've been putting more and more technology into the phones. Like you've got things like accelerometers, you've even got barometers, you've got what altitude you're at, and so we use a combination of about 22 sensors on a phone with some trade secret algorithms, and then combine that with what's going on. So with things like Wi-Fi triangulation, Bluetooth, NFC, even if you're outdoor, we call it augmented GPS with a combination of sort of transceivers and things. So we just take that location and we can narrow it right down. But it's amazing the amount of sensors on the phone that you carry around with you in your pocket.
Yeah, I guess it is. And I was watching their last Apple keynote, and they were saying that you can literally, there's this new feature where you can point the phone towards someone when you're about to do an airdrop, and it will their name will pop up on the screen because it's pointing at them. And again, if you're utilizing all this technology, which is available to you, it's quite a lot, you're like, it's not like years ago where you needed all these. Well, I guess you still need big servers, don't get me wrong, but it's not like that anymore, is it? You can really utilize what's on that phone, that power.
Oh, there's so much power on your phone. I mean, it's kind of almost like science fiction type stuff that we're working on. Yeah, because we're pretty much on the cutting edge. But yeah, just using all the latest technology that's available to us.
So, I supply lots of, say, takeaway businesses, mostly takeaways, restaurants, a few pubs. So do you think your technology, is there a way that it can be extrapolated and used in takeaways or people that are doing delivery? Does it work there yet, or do you not see a market for you guys there yet?
Yeah, well, we decided to kind of leave the home delivery stuff to the guys like Deliveroo and Just Eat, because that's quite an established market. We felt there was a big gap. And really goes all the way back to your point right in the beginning about app fatigue and about having 4 or 5 actually apps you use all the time. So we felt there was a real gap to actually have a great experience for like in-venue ordering and collection. So we just focus on that sort of pick-up collection and the in-venue ordering, and we do that for pubs, takeaways, restaurants. We also do a lot with sports stadiums and hotels. And I said what's great about the technology is the context. So in a hotel, you tap an NFC tag, you get room service in the rooms. You tap it by the pool, you get the pool menu. You tap it in the cigar lounge, you get the cigar menu. In sports stadiums is really taking off at the moment because, obviously they've got to be COVID friendly. So they all want, secure kind of collection method or in-seat delivery of the food and drink. And where we really stand out from the crowd there is our technology is built on the same technology Facebook is built on, which without getting too technical, it's a very fast kind of platform that allows to deliver data. So you can use like Facebook if you notice it on a 3G with maybe 1 bar, whereas most other apps won't work because they're just too much data. So we've built ours with that in mind for ultra speed. So it means that thousands of fans can be ordering food and drink at the same time with Fetch Tech. That's kind of that. It's funny, I didn't even realize it when we built it because we just built it using kind of latest technology. But that one thing is allowing us to really help big sports stadiums.
Do you see the future like with these NFC little modules everywhere? Is that, or is there going to be a new, what's next after NFC? Do you see something else superseding it?
No, I think the NFC technology is really great. I think you'll see a lot more with LiDAR, which is in all the new iPhones now. So LiDAR is like sort of it's using light to measure distances, and you've got things like computer vision, so it can recognize objects and things like that. So I think a lot of that pointing your phone at things will definitely be the future.
Mm. And then with the implementation of 5G, does that help your software a little bit or not so much? Because obviously...
Totally.
Yeah,
totally. So it just makes things so much faster. So again, sports stadiums, if there's 5G enabled, you can probably have twice as many people that can get access to the network than on sort of 3G or 4G.
I'm just thinking about the old movies, like I don't know if you watch a movie in like. It's not even that old, really, but say it's an American baseball game and they're throwing hot dogs at people in the stadium, and you think, oh, who's it for? And it's just, well, he's put his hand up, he wants a hot dog, and then everyone passes down the dollar or whatever it is. And I wonder if, like, this sort of, like, it does feel like a parody. I'm not going to lie, it feels a bit like a parody that, if I was going to make a comedy, it would be me sitting in a stadium tapping my phone or ordering something against this receiver, someone throwing the food at me, and they got paid. And I think it does feel like a parody, It
could be a drone. Could be a drone delivering your food.
Yeah. No, it couldn't it? 'Cause it's not heavy, so it could.
Seriously, Paul's not far off. So there's a company that we just started some conversations with who want to partner, and they're doing drone delivery. So they see Fetch as a great partner of theirs.
How do you weed out things like that, though? When sometimes you might get a request and think, "Oh, that sounds a bit far fetched." Obviously, because I think a drone to some people is still a bit scary, isn't it?
Yes, no, but it's choice again, right? I mean, so this company, they're just doing specialized in the fulfillment, as in the drone delivery. So so people would choose what if they wanted it to be delivered. So if they want a drone landing in their back garden with their McDonald's, then I think they'll probably choose it because they can get their McDonald's in about 2 or 3 minutes via drone delivery versus trying to get through the traffic in central London is going to take a lot longer than a couple of minutes on a drone delivery.
I've got a lot of respect for the likes of McDonald's. I don't know how they do deliveries. Like, not being funny, have you ever bought a McDonald's and gone to your car? It's usually lukewarm by that point. Like, how the hell are they delivering it and it's still warm? I don't even know. I know I shouldn't make fun of people, but I don't know. Like, they've pulled it off, and is it just, do people have lower expectations when it comes to the likes of McDonald's? I don't know. Like, it's just a burger, isn't it? It's not expensive. It's not an expensive meal, is it? So your expectations are lowered, whatever you say. Like, if
they are.
Yeah, like, if I was ordering a meal from, I don't know, a Miller and Carter or, I don't know, Gavroche in London, I can understand how people's expectations are high. But, McDonald's, not being...
You're paying a $5.
Yeah, you're paying a $5, get over it, sort of thing. What are the best implementations of your software? Like, where do you think you've really seen it? Or do you not think you've seen the best implementation yet?
No, we haven't, because obviously we're in these sort of COVID times with social distancing and people being anchored to points and things like that. So I really see the best implementations in the future when people are in crowded bars, they're sitting around the pool and they can just order. So really, when the location side of our technology comes into its own, that is when people will just be, wow, this is amazing. I can just order from anywhere. Like being at a festival and ordering it and then finding you. I'll tell you another really cool group actually we just started working with is one of our new investors. He was the founder of Backyard Cinemas, and he can't wait for us to sort of start working in the cinemas, right? Because you think about it, you haven't got time to leave your seat, have you? Otherwise, you're going to miss the film to go and get another drink and popcorn. Wouldn't it be great if you can just get it delivered to you wherever you are? So, I think there's a lot of fun we can have with it in the future.
I think also it's worth noting that you're all your whole team's working from home at the moment. So it's not like they can go to a busy venue to stake it out, watch, see what's going on. So I guess even from your point of view, although you're doing lots of great work, your creativity isn't really being hit because you're not seeing it in a live situation as much as you'd like.
No, I mean, we really focused on obviously selling over the last few months to takeaways because they're the only one that's open. And we do have with the location tech, what we can do, and actually we're ahead of our customers, but when we talked to them about it, and we had this conversation with one of the largest pizza chains in the UK, I won't mention their name, but they absolutely loved it when we said to them, with our technology, you can actually see people on their way to collect the pizzas, so you can actually get them ready as per the delivery time of your customer. So the arrival time of your customer. So you can have that perfect service. So people come in and go, "Oh, here's your pizza, Stelios. Here's your pizza, Paul." Rather than the person who's arrived there waiting for 20 minutes, and then the person whose pizza is ready isn't even there yet, and all that kind of stuff. So it really just makes that whole kind of pickup solution super efficient.
I think that's one of the things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I think for me, Steve, all operators, whether they're using Fetch or another solution, and there are others, are currently using their solution to get through a COVID issue, i.e., distancing and COVID measures, etc. And I think once we reopen again, and we are maybe the spring summertime when we will be vaccinated, etc. I see operators then using it to try and drive revenue, not just to be able to open and trade for a takeaway or for a beer to the garden, but actually using it to target consumers to say, "Hey, welcome back, Paul. We know you were in last week. Is it the same again?" Or opening that tab facility to let me order more. I see people using it more cleverly to try and drive revenue rather than just to deliver a product to somebody quicker without meeting anybody.
Yeah, as like you say, at the moment, it is literally just the fight for survival. But do you think that? I think the good thing is, if consumer habits change enough over this, they're going to want to use it anyway. If it's seamless, it's convenient, it doesn't cause any hassle, and it shouldn't do, obviously, because tech can, but hopefully for the most part, it's there to make it easier. So if customers' habits can change, then there's no reason why they wouldn't have such a thing. One thing I was trying to get my head around is, because I've not checked it, is Fetch, does it come down on people's phones like named after the restaurant, or is it a Fetch app and then they have to find their restaurant?
It's a Fetch app, but it's all again with the location base. So when it will just open up on the venue you're at, and if you're not in a venue, it will just open up the ones around you, assuming that you're going to pick up within a 5-mile radius.
Pretty clever. Yeah.
And if you live out in the sticks, and you need to, it will then know where you with that, and so it will load like a sort of a 15-mile radius, for example.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things that I talk to a lot of people about that have a lot of, let's say, their own online delivery systems, click and collect or whatever. One thing they get really peeved off about, and it'd be interesting, Jason, if you could help us here, because I think we don't know the answer here, but a lot of people say they get really peed off with having to use Stripe. And my understanding is that Stripe is very good at what they do, hence why a lot of online operators integrate with Stripe.
I'm going to tell you that Stripe is brilliant, but they're very expensive.
That's right.
So we signed a global deal with their biggest competitor called Adyen, and they really supported us. I mean, so that we're one of their kind of key partners, and they've given us absolutely incredible rates. So we're way more competitive than anyone using Stripe.
Really? Because I think for the most part, most people are telling me that Stripe's over 2%, 1.9 plus 20p or something. So it's cool.
Yeah. Whereas we're more like 0.5 and a couple of pence. So yeah, it's very low cost.
Wow.
Our
It's weird because it's one of those companies, Adyen, that I see it in my statement all the time, but I know nothing about it. Like, because they cover so much payment processing for a lot of companies that I use, but I remember, you just don't know what it is. But no, Stripe's one of those things that it's probably the biggest request I get as a supplier all the time. Like, people coming to me saying, "Do you know any alternative to Stripe? Do you know any alternative to Stripe?" And I think a lot of people are getting really peed off with it, because it seems that, and I don't know why a lot of online companies have just integrated with those guys faster. Is it a faster service? Is it quicker to get on? Do their companies get a kickback? What do you think most people's reason is for integrating with Stripe?
I think it's just because they built the tools so that you can get sort of up and running really quickly. I mean, honestly, on a like for like, if you had to get a some kind of payment app up and running. Stripe would probably be the quickest because it's literally drag and drop type of technology. But Adyen is a little bit more work with the integration. But ultimately for us, we wanted a partner that we could work with for the long haul. And, Adyen Uber use Adyen, for example. So no, we're big fans of the guys at Adyen.
Fantastic. Guys, is there anything I've forgotten to mention?
No, I think you covered most of it, actually.
I think we have. I think we've touched on most things, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward with, Brexit and post-COVID, I think. Do you, from your point of view, guys, do you see England the British government really betting hard on the UK economy and really trying to drive it forward, either from a hospitality sector, Paul, or a tech sector, Jason?
I think, whilst they're borrowing billions by the day, frankly, it's quite cheap right now. So, in theory, it's a great time to borrow money and invest in the country. So I do see them trying to invest our way out of this or grow our way out of this. And it's how much they invest cleverly and in sectors that need that help, that can start repaying back quicker, i.e. hospitality and that £40 billion a year in taxes. So I do see us trying to grow out of it rather than come out of it via cost cutting. It's not going to really work that, or austerity. I can't see that happening. I could see it being a growth recovery plan that they've got. I hope they are anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah, and from the tech sector, the UK is one of the sort of tech kind of hotspots in the world. There's so much investment in tech in this country because of the great schemes government have in place, and also just the sector's really hot on the venture capitalist side. Particularly fintech, which we're in. The multiples we're seeing on our kind of valuations of things are very, very high. So yeah, it's very buoyant, and we've got a lot of interest from investors. When we actually started the business, we only looked to raise, a few $100,000 to get going, and we actually raised over $1 million.
Wow! And you haven't spent it all yet.
Not yet. We're actually being very careful with it because obviously, we want to make sure it lasts until we get through to our next fundraise, which will be a very large raise. Yeah.
So, what sort of points in the ground do you have to sort of get to before you start to look at your next round of funding? What is it you want to achieve before you do that, do you think?
The whole business is focused on hitting a target of 1,000 venues live, because obviously at the moment we've actually already got several hundred, but they're not all live because obviously a lot of them are closed because of COVID. So the exciting news for us with yesterday's announcement is that we know that over the next couple of months we should get up to a couple of hundred sort of live, and then we've got some quite big things happening in the hotel space, sports stadiums, things. So I'm very confident of hitting that 1,000 venue target by the end of the year, and that really is the big kind of trigger for some real institutional sort of funding, which is very exciting because then we want to launch in North America next.
Wow, that's a big space to cover.
Yeah, no, it's a big market, so also a very lucrative market.
I guess it's a very similar market to ours. If you test here, I guess that the consumers are probably quite similar, I guess.
Joe, that is a really great question because when you look at Europe, they don't really have that many chains, of restaurant chains, whereas obviously America have more restaurant chains than anyone. So we are very similar. Whereas Europe's all about independent. So yeah, we will get to Europe, but it's a lot harder kind of sales effort because in the States you get a corporate deal. I did it with the hotel groups, and you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of restaurants all of a sudden using your technology.
Yeah, it's a different scale of rollout, isn't it? Like, and there's no language issues. You don't have to really consider all the other things. And I think Europe is very fragmented. It looks very united in some ways, but there's 20 odd different languages and 20 odd different customs, and so it's just so much to consider. And then it's trying to break into each individual market, or maybe they don't like taking their phones out to dinner, or maybe this, or maybe that. But I do think I read ages ago that when America tests anything, like fast food, they always do it. Is it Ohio or Columbus? I can't remember. And they test everything there, and if it works there, because they've got quite a good demographic of different sets of people. And I remember someone said that, what's the area in England that's very similar? It might be like Banbury, Oxfordshire, something like that. And they're saying again, you've got lots of different people. And I wonder if like England is your test bed, and then America is the bigger version of England, because I don't think it's overly different.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I guess our biggest market at the moment is actually Ireland, because we acquired a company called Bamboo, who was Ireland's largest order and payment app. And they kind of, saw all our location technology and realised that, they'd built up a great, 100,000 users, a couple of hundred customers, and they kind of saw that, joining forces with us. So we acquired them back in December, and we're just kind of finished the integration. But that's great. So, I mean, there's some towns in Ireland where, there's sort of one in every two people are using our technology. So it's super exciting.
That is pretty impressive, isn't it? Pretty impressive.
So we're kind of using that more as a sort of test bed at the moment, but but I think we want to crack the sort of UK and Ireland sort of over the next 12 months, and then hit North America.
Well, guys, I just want to say thank you for your time. It's been great. I've learned lots about technology that I didn't know, and Paul, thanks for your insights on hospitality, actually, because I think that you know what you're talking about for a start, which is really impressive. And you're not just talking from an emotional point of view, you're talking about data and facts. And I think that's something that's been missing. I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and I know it's emotional because it's their livelihoods and it's their business. But I think you've come across from a very concise point of view, and I feel that's very important.
Thank you. I mean, it is an emotional industry, but it also is a great business, and it pays back in spades, And we need to shout more about that 40 million quid a year in taxes. It's the third largest employer in the UK. 3.2 million people employed in hospitality in the UK. It's a massive employer in the UK.
Yeah.
So being allowed to reopen quicker and with more support, it pays. We've all invested money in our businesses, right? And you work out, okay, am I going to get my return on this? And you will do, because it's got a history of paying back over the last 20 years.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I
less emotion, more facts. You're absolutely right, though.
Say again, sorry.
A bit less emotion and a bit more on the facts to try and.
I think that's what's needed, really. I think that's what's needed. But I spoke to Kate Nichols just before Christmas, and from UK Hospitality, and it's staggering, really. And she's really bullish on the industry, as she should be. But she said, you throw the money back into this industry, it will churn around pretty fast, and before you know it, the money's coming back into the treasury.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, guys, on that note, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for having us.
And I hope you get your 1 million users. And I'd love to have you back on again in the future. Same with you, Paul.
I'd love to come back on.
All right.
Cool.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah, cheers. Take care.